Good afternoon. Today was an extremely difficult day for the State of Israel, for the Jewish people, and for anybody with a drop of humanity coursing through their veins. Today, the bodies of Shiri Bibas, 4-year-old Ariel, and 9-month-old Kfir were laid to their final resting place in Kibbutz Nir Oz. Let us begin by just taking a moment of silence in memory of these precious lives. It's now been 16, almost 17 months since Israel was attacked on October 7th, and the Jewish state has been thrust into a war on 7 fronts. We have many questions to ask regarding Israel's economic health during this period. Most essentially, how has the war impacted on Israel's economy? How has it affected the tourism sector, the agricultural sector, and commerce in general? How's the fact that so many young men and women have been called into the reserves had an impact on Israel's economy? Here to answer these questions and more is Minister Noach Hacker. Minister Hacker leads the economic mission for the Ministry of Finance at the Israeli Embassy in the United States. He was born in Jerusalem and has received his BA in Social Sciences and Economics from Bar Ilan University and his MA in Social Sciences, specializing in International Economic Influence from the University of Haifa. He's also a graduate of the very prestigious Israeli National Defense College. During the last 5 years, Minister Noach Hacker has served as board member and vice president to one of the largest telecommunications companies in Israel. Before that, Noach had various positions in the Ministry of Finance, including deputy director of the budget department, where he led various reforms on the Israeli economy, orchestrating the construction of the Israeli budget and its approval in the government and the Knesset. So it is indeed a terrific honor and privilege to be able to welcome you here, Minister Hacker. Please, can you inform us of how it is that Israel has been managing to fight this war on 7 fronts and how what the health of its economy is today?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the warm words. And of course, this is a very, I don't want to say it's because it's every day almost in the last 16 months has been hard, but this is a hard day. And I think while we're talking today about economy, I think this is something that people notice less. We're talking a lot about the war, about what's going on, about the society, but actually Israel has been fighting an economic war for a year and a half now, and I think that's something that's very meaningful to us. And in a lot of ways, it tells the story of the Jewish people, not only of the Israeli economy. I've been to the Bibas family home in Nir Oz for a couple of times now. And you see the people and you talk to them and you hear their stories. Some of them never left Nir Oz since the attack, have stayed there. Some of them survived the horrible attack of October 7th, and they're looking forward and they're able to smile and laugh. And I think that resilience is a lot of what we're going to talk today about the economy. So just everybody that knows Israel understands that Israel is not a big country. We all know each other. There's a lot of family vibe going around. Everybody is the other man's brother or sister or friend. So an event like October 7th and the magnitude of the destruction, of the murdering, and it created a very big effect on Israel as a whole, but also on the economy. thousands of rockets have been fired in that same day on October 7th from Gaza toward Israeli cities. And I think maybe that was the most meaningful effect on the economy since the war started. What happened exactly was, you're talking about what happened with all the reserves going to call for service, but the biggest effect was on that Saturday morning, hundreds of thousands of people were called into reserves. But on that Sunday, after that, schools were closed because of the missiles. And what happened for the first months of war, you had families that the kids stay at home because they can't go to school. One of the parents is in reserves duty, and the other one had to stay at home. And that actually had the biggest effect on the economy for the first month until school reopened. And I think that from that point, from that low point of the end of 2023, we've been seeing an amazing recovery from that point. You can see it everywhere you look. First of all, in the job market, you see that everybody went back to work, and now the unemployment rate in Israel is at 2.6%. Very, very low, historically low. Also, you see it in our stock markets, which fell almost immediately after October 7th. Since January 2024, the Israeli stock market has risen more than 50%. 50%. I think that's something that nobody have believed if we would have said that before. The risk premiums of Israel, which immediately jumped after October 7th, are now in the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing them coming back to where they were before. The same with government yields. But there's a lot of challenges. Israel's economy was supposed to grow at about 3% in 2023. It actually grew by 2% because of the end of the year. But in 2024, a year of multi-front war, the Israeli economy has managed to finish the year with 1% positive growth. So it's not the growth we are hoping for. We're more like looking for 3.5%, because Israel is expanding very fast. We have a lot of kids and we're growing very fast. But still, I think the ability to finish this kind of year in positive growth says a lot about Israel's economy. And if you take a look even deeper to the data of the last quarter of 2024, you see that the growth is more like 2.5%, and very, very encouraging data. And it goes all around. You see the communities starting to come back. Still a lot of challenges there, mostly in the north, if you ask me. There'll be a lot of challenges, but we're starting to see a path there. Reserves have gone down significantly. And I think there's a lot of, the market is working very strong. Credit card purchasing is higher than they were. And we're starting to see the market bouncing back. But it has to do a lot to do with the Israeli nature. One of the most amazing pictures that I saw in the beginning of the war is their reserve base. And they set up a WeWork tent for reserves, and you actually saw people like with their uniform on, coming back from some kind of guard duty, opening their computers, connecting to their high-tech company in Tel Aviv or wherever, and talking to their clients around the world from a base in the middle of nowhere. And my second son is in a program learning math through an Israeli university. And I'm going near his room and I'm seeing him learning on the Zoom with his Israeli teacher. And then I'm looking and I'm seeing a tank passing behind him. And I'm like, what's going on? You're learning math? He's like, yeah, he's in reserves. He just opened his computer and he's teaching us now at this time. And I think that's the nature. We never stop. We never give up. And you see that in the economy. And our high-tech sector, whereas a lot of negative effects, but on the economy, it creates opportunity for innovation, deal with very complex situation. And our way of dealing with things is a lot to do with technology. And when we see a problem and we have that ability, so we're using technology to solve our problems. And I think countries around the world are starting to notice it. That's why we're seeing a lot of investments coming to Israeli high-tech in the last year, even though it's war, and a lot of cooperation. Let's say a lot of the difficulties that we face or the challenges that we face are the same between a lot of Western countries, including, of course, the United States. If it's on cyber, if it's drones, tunnels, a lot of the challenges and solutions that Israeli innovated in this war will probably help a lot of global issues to be resolved and protect a lot of other countries, not only Israel. And I think that's something that people are starting to realize. Right. So we have we had a very tough year, but I think the opportunities that will come up in this year are very, very strong, and we see that in the data. And another thing to say before I let you ask any questions you want is to understand the Israeli stability. Okay, Israel has been facing, or Jewish people have been facing challenges for many, 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 many years. And one of the things that you said, as you mentioned, I worked in the Ministry of Finance, in the budget department, and we always prepare for the worst. That's why we try to keep our fiscal policy very, very responsible, even though it's not that popular, to tell people that you have to cut monies or not, or don't give tax cuts, a lot of things. So we made a big effort in the last 20, 30 years to get our debt to GDP ratio very low. And we managed to do that. And we saw that in COVID, how it helped us, but also we started this war very low, in 60%. And even with all the war expenses, which were huge, like about 200 billion shekels, that's unprecedented in Israeli history. We still see that debt to GDP ratio remains low relatively to other countries. We're talking about lower than 70%. And another figure that I'm sure you won't believe it when I say it, in January, the government income was higher than government expenses. So we had a surplus in January, and not a small surplus of about 25 billion shekels. So we're starting to see, even in the fiscal policy, we're starting to see things cooling down and coming back to where we want to be. And that is a very stable financial place in order to protect us financially. And we're talking about that. I'll also mention the fact that we've experienced some other issues in this war, of countries boycotting Israel, of terrorist organizations try to block trade routes to Israel in the Red Sea, the Houthi. So we've been facing all that, but still we're presenting this kind of data, and I think that's a very, very important message to send to the world, that we're strong and stable, and we're not giving up.
So which sectors do you think have been most badly hit? Has it been agriculture? I know so many people from the north are reluctant to go back because of the instability. Has it been tourism?
So I think you can look at it two ways. First of all, is from the sector itself. And I think the tourism sector is probably the one that was hit the most. Because I don't know how many of you try to go and visit Israel. For many, many months, there was only one company flying to Israel. So even if you want to go and tour Israel, it was difficult. Now we're seeing companies come back, but for many months, it was just one company. But the thing is, in Israeli economy, the tourism sector is not a big one. So the actual effect on the economy wasn't that big. On the tourism sector, it was huge, and also because people, that's not a good thing, yeah, but because people couldn't leave Israel, so the internal tourism was very high. So that created some balance to it. And of course, another negative thing that in Israel, we tried to create it into something more positive is that because we had to evacuate our northern communities to the center of Israel, and so the hotels were empty because of the tourism crisis. So most of the communities were placed in hotels, and that created at least the ability to keep those hotels full in a time that we have no tourism. So that's the tourism sector. In agriculture, we do have some challenges, okay, but it has to do with foreign workers that are not coming to Israel or coming less to Israel. And I think the most affected sector, which actually most affected the Israeli economy, is the construction sector, which was highly dependent on Palestinian workers. And after October 7th, because of security concerns, one of the first things that happened was to stop the entrance of Palestinian workers into Israel. And I think that created a very big effect on the construction sector, and we're feeling it also now. It hasn't been resolved, and I don't know what the solution will be. We're trying to figure out many ways to solve it. Some of them is bringing foreign workers from other countries. Some of them are, as I said, Israel fixes things with technology, a lot of technology and innovation going into construction right now. And some of it is Israeli workers that we're trying to incentivize to come and work in construction, also in agriculture. So those are the solutions, but it's not solved yet. We do see some kind of coming back to new projects and building starts, but we're not. We didn't solve that yet. That's a challenge that continues with us.
Is that part of the rationale for why Israel might be allowing Syrian Druze into?
I don't want to tell you that answer, but we are in negotiations with a lot of different countries. Some of them we have been getting. Also, we signed agreements with India and others to bring in foreign workers for construction.
Right. So what do you see as the key priorities for the U.S.-Israel economic relationship in the coming year?
So I think when you look at our situation, we have shown our resilience, but we want the growth, we want the prosperity, and I think in a time that everybody's talking about U.S. leadership and the fact that Israel is part of that U.S. leadership, I think one of the most unique things about the economic relationship between Israel and the U.S. is that we're not competitors, right? If you take a look at the EU is a huge economic base competing on the global stage. Israel is a small economy that mostly does technology and innovation, and you see that in actual cooperation in the private sector. You actually see that a lot of U.S. companies coming and buying Israeli startups or establishing their innovation hubs in Israel. And I think that kind of cooperation, when we can improve our joint operations together and actually work with the biggest economy and the strongest economy in the world, the U.S., to drive us forward, I think that's the thing we want to focus on. And I can tell you that in the last couple of years, it hasn't always been easy. There's a lot of issues. I don't think they're directed on Israel, but that created a lot of disturbance in that relationship. But we truly hope and believe that it's in both our countries' interest to make sure that goes forward in the right way And I do think that it's going to, the ability of the Israeli innovation and flexibility and drive with the huge force of the US can make great things.
So, what trends are we seeing in U.S. Foreign direct investments in Israel, especially in high tech?
So many years ago, let's say 2016, the US didn't play that big of part in foreign direct investments in Israel. We had, I think it was other players that took even bigger parts in the US. In 2023, 75% of foreign direct investments in Israel were American investments. 75%. That's amazing. And that's something that it didn't only happen by mistake, right? It's driven by the private sector, of course, but as governments, we try to make that happen because we believe that a strong relationship with our biggest partner is very important in these issues as well. And I hope that it will keep on going. You need to understand that if you're an American investor and you want it and you believe you want to invest in Israel because of your economic decisions, we have to make sure that the ideas of trying to incentivize you to do different things won't hurt the fact that you want to invest in Israel. And I think that's a challenge, but the trend is very clear. America is playing a bigger role in the Israeli economy as the years go by. Let's say in the last 2-3 years, a bigger and bigger role. Most of the M&As in high tech in Israel this year, I think also around 70% was American companies purchasing an Israeli company. So a huge role in high tech, a huge role. It's mostly high tech, and I think that's a lot about not only the relationship, but also it shows you the value that U.S. companies sees from working in Israel and meeting these startups and companies. And then I think again I'm coming back to the point where we're not competitors. You see that a huge American company buying a startup then helps that company compete around the world with the new technology that they just got from the Israeli cooperation. And I think that's important to see. And that translates, of course, to jobs in America, to a lot of benefits for investors from America and Israel. So I think that's on the right trend, but we have to maintain it and keep investing in it because it won't happen. We can't take it for granted. That's what I'm saying.
Certain protectionist policies like U.S. tariffs affect Israeli exports going forward?
So there's a lot of discussion on that issue. I can just tell you that we have a free trade agreement with the U.S. I think the first free trade agreement that the U.S. signed is with Israel. And if you take a look at the number of I think it's 98% of products or almost all products coming in from America are not paying tariffs in Israel at all. And so I think in that way, we're not the focus of these issues. But you understand from what I'm saying that, as you know, countries that are highly connected are more influenced by actions that one of them are acting. So, of course, that the fact that we are more connected to the U.S. economy by choice and have more cooperation, especially in high tech, it puts us in a more vulnerable position to these kinds of decisions. And I don't know if you know, but the U.S. as a country, America as a country, is our biggest trading partner. So that's also something that we're looking at. But I don't think, I don't know what the decisions are gonna be, but the Israeli market is a small market. We're talking about 10 million people. When you're talking about Europe, it's 100 million people, hundreds of millions of people. They have their own market. Israel's economy is facing the world, so we have some demand in Israel, but a lot of demand overseas. But we hope that that will continue and not be disrupted in the future.
So we've gotten some excellent questions in the chat. One
Sure.
is that many Americans, both Jews and non-Jews alike, want to help. We want to donate, we want to invest. Should there be more high-profile outreach and guidance as to how Americans can best help the Israeli economy?
First of all, you tell me if you feel that we're not doing enough, then I take that with me. And I think, you know, you ask me challenges looking forward in the Israeli economy, investment, investment, investment. We're a young country. That means we started off with no infrastructure almost at all. And we've been building since. But also with that building, our population grows very fast. So let's say in 30, 40 years, we have to build another Israel in Israel. And that houses, hospitals, roads, and a lot of those projects are coming out now from the government, but also in the private sector. So I think what you mentioned, it's like, I want people to invest in Israel because it's a good investment, right? Because you get but it's very profitable. You see it in our stock market, as I told you, one of the biggest prizes in the world. But I think after you see that countries actually are fighting the Israeli economy and trying to create some kind of negative effect on the Israeli economy, if it's investments in Israel that are now people trying to prevent universities from investing in Israel, for example. It's not that we need that specific university for the Israeli economy, but that trend to make Israel something that you don't want to invest in, that we can't let that happen. So I think in that way, every investment in Israel, I think also it will be a good decision economically, but investment in Israel is very important. And Israeli and American cooperation in high tech, in other ways and projects in Israel, I think that's very important. Of course, you have Israel bonds for the government of Israel, or just bonds that the Israeli government is issuing from time to time. So I think you have a lot of places you can take part and also make good economic decisions. But also on the more, let's say, soft issues, or like in the donating part, I know there's several routes. If you want, I can send you afterwards. But that's a very personal decision. Every person has different priorities or different issues. I know that when the war just started, we got a lot of requests actual requests from people to how can I help, or what can I do? And I know that we directed some of it to municipalities in the south and the north. I think that's going to be a very big issue. As I spoke yesterday actually with the manager of the new initiative, the Tkuma initiative in Israel. He's like the director of it, and he told me that they're thinking about also doing something maybe more inclusive for other communities around the world to take part in this rebuilding of those communities.
I know that there's been a tremendous amount of cooperation between the United States Army and the Israeli Army. And Israel is actually really leading in terms of certain weapons developments. How much of your sector is devoted to that, the economic sector, and how much of an investment do you think the American and other armies are making to work in cooperation with weapons manufacturers in Israel?
So I can tell you that our defense industries are highly highly connected. They all have presence here in the United States. Some of them, I've been to IAI a couple weeks ago, and they showed me hundreds of American workers are working in an Israeli government company here in the US. Hundreds of American workers joint projects, strategic projects, talking about the laser abilities to fight off missiles, and we heard the president talking about the David Shield here in the US, and we saw the huge achievements of the defense missile systems in Israel after being attacked from multiple fronts, including Iran, with very strong and significant missiles that we actually managed to go through almost without any harm. And I think that's something unbelievable. It's really, we call it, I'm a religious man. It's a miracle, right? It's to see that happening. It's unbelievable. And I think the whole world is seeing that. And as I said, the challenging we're facing now, everybody's going to face in the future, right? We see it, or not in the future, or even as we speak. We are not seeing it only in the abilities, the defense, the classical defense abilities with the missiles and things like that, but also the cyber attacks that we're seeing in Israel are the same cyber attacks that the US is seeing or will see in the near future. And the ability to prevent that is just the same as the ability to prevent those missiles from coming. And I think that cooperation is very strong. So we have a very deep cooperation between our defense industries, and I believe it will only get stronger with these results in this war.
So, how is your trade with Europe affected by political concerns?
So we do have an effect from political concerns on trade, and I think we've been recognizing that. It's not all European countries, okay? I don't want to point out, let's say, too much, but we do see an effect. We're seeing things in this war that we haven't seen before. I'm not talking only about Turkey deciding to boycott Israel completely. I'm talking even other European countries. We've been seeing that. So we have concerns. And another concern is that we had is the silent concern, more silent concern, when companies just say, you know what, let's hold things off for a couple of years, see how things balance, or maybe let things cool down a bit, and then we're going to see the effect. And I think that's what we have seen. It's not that significant, so it doesn't affect the Israeli economy, but those are concerns that we have. But on the other side of it, there's a lot of opportunities, right? Because people want economic cooperation with Israel. So when someone gets out, a lot of people come in. And I think the best way to show it is to look what happened after Turkey actually boycotted completely Israel. So what we saw before the boycott is that in certain products, we were highly trading with Turkey. Most of it is construction. 50-60% of some product in Israel was from Turkey. But what we saw from the market, actually without doing anything governmental, is that in days they were replaced and prices didn't go up, which means it's kind of competitive field that even didn't bring a rise in prices. So we're not seeing a very negative effect of it, but it is something that we're looking at, and there are things that we're seeing that we've never seen before. That's one of the reasons that we understand who our partners are, who our true partners are. And part of the reason why we're so focused on the US as a very good partner and a very reliable partner.
So, what is your trade situation like with China, for example?
So that's a difficult question to answer, but I can tell you, let's say for foreign direct investments, for example, okay, if in 2016, about 30% of foreign direct investments in Israel were from China, in 2023, it was fractions of 1%, almost zero. So that's a very big change. We do import from China, mostly goods, industrial, like very not high tech things, but the big change is the investments part, and that's a very big change, and it has to do with many reasons, but that's a big change that happened with trade with China.
Another very populous related country is India. What is
Yeah.
the situation with India and Israeli investments?
So India, I can tell you that there were a couple of delegations from the Israeli Ministry of Finance and Economic Ministry of Israel that have just come back from India. We're working very strongly to improve our economic relations with them, and I think we're going to see that as a very big driver of trade in the next couple of years. That's something that it is there, but we're working on it to make it larger and more significant. Trade deals, investments agreements, and a lot of things that we're working on. And of course, I don't know, you probably know the land corridor between India and Europe, which is supposed to go through Israel, which will create a very big change for the entire region, not only to Israel, but it will change the entire region. And I think a very interesting thing that happened in that subject is that the Houthim, the Iranian proxy, tried to block the sea route to Israel. What it actually did is promote the land corridor between India and Europe. And I think we're seeing that in trade coming up through the Jordan River crossing significantly from a lot of countries that you wouldn't assume that trade will go up with them during a year of war. And I think we see that also in the Abraham Accord countries, which every country trade went up in the last year, not down. And I think that's very significant, and it sends a very strong message to the world that these agreements are very reliable and very strong. And I hope it will continue to expand those agreements, of course, with other countries.
Some international rating agencies have downgraded Israel a bit.
That's an
What will it
understatement.
need? Yeah, right. I wanted to put it delicately. So what will it take to get them to upgrade Israel's status again?
But I don't want to judge the companies, but you heard the data, right? A country that's keeping fiscal responsibility like Israel, not a lot of countries do that. A country in positive growth, 2 years now, positive growth. We have foreign currency reserves, one of the highest in the world. A country keeps foreign currency reserves in order to make sure that it has money for her external debt. We have 4 times our external debt in foreign currency reserves. So we're very stable and very, very strong. So, and you see the economy coming back, and you see the government decisions to keep fiscal policy, very, very responsible fiscal policy. So, and we heard in the last couple of weeks after the ceasefires, the ceasefire in Gaza was announced, that they see that as a positive effect, but we haven't seen upgrades yet. And I'm not sure it reflects the reality of the Israeli economy, because when you see the data and you see what's really going on, and you understand how the Israeli economy is built, and you see that also in private sector confidence. You see that in investors. How in a year of 3 or 4 downgrades, we're finishing with a good year, a very good year in investments in high tech. Government just released bonds a week ago here in the US, government bonds of about $5 billion. We have demand for 20-something billion. We're seeing the risk premium coming down. So the market or our stock market rose 50% in the last year. So the market is actually showing confidence. And I don't really understand the decision not to upgrade Israel again, but if the market is showing confidence, then that's a good sign for us. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
So at least one columnist who's very popular, I don't want to mention his name, has said that he knows investors who've been wanting to invest in Israel, but are very perplexed by the amount of red tape that has prevented them from investing. Is there a way that Israel can relax some of these regulations to allow for more foreign investment?
First of all, I'll love to hear details on that. That's the thing that I like the most to fighting bureaucracy. Again, you mentioned I spent some time in the private sector, so I get where the question comes from. And of course, one of our objectives is to make investing in Israel as easy as possible. So if you can just refer them to me or my team, and we'll try to connect and deal with the specific issues. I know there's some issues of a lot of regulation of banking regulation, but if it's something specific that we have an example for it, we'll try to address it. And I promise to try to deal with it personally.
Beautiful. Okay, so what sectors do you see leading Israel's economic recovery in the coming years?
So I think we all understand that, as I said, war is a negative thing, but it creates opportunities. So I think the defense industry will probably be a big driver for the economy in the coming years because of all the innovation going there. You need to understand that our reservists, we had I'm sorry that I'm like drifting away, but I think it's an interesting story. We had the chief of medicine of the IDF coming, and he came to speak with us, telling us about what's going on in the and this has been a war with incredible results on that front. He told us it's 60 minutes since a soldier has been injured in Gaza until he's on the operating table in Israel, in a hospital in Israel. 60 minutes, that's it. And they've been getting great results. And he explained to us, how did they get these results? And he's saying, well, we're going through that thing. And he put GoPro cameras on his teams on the field to understand the process in order to make it better. And one of his reservists that was there, which actually is a bass player for one of the Israeli rock bands, right? So he's sitting there and his day job is in high tech. He's sitting there and he says, well, why are you going around with this paper, transferring papers from the medic to the doctor on the helicopter? What's going on? And he said, no, we're not able to create a digital solution for that. And then him and his friend told him, give us a week. And they found a solution. So Israeli innovation and the fact that reservists day jobs are in high tech inventing things, and then they meet the challenges of IDF and war, it creates very interesting and very smart solutions. And I think that's what's going to drive a lot of our economy going forward, either in the defense sector, but also in the other tech sectors. We're going to see that. I always explain it like when you're holding something in your hand and then you're releasing it in one stroke, then it's like an explosion of innovation. And I think that's what we're starting to see now.
Right. So earlier on, you mentioned that reserves went down. Are you referring to the foreign exchange reserves there?
No, I'm talking about reservists.
The reservists. Okay, perfect. Okay. And who do you see as your 5 largest trading partners today? The United States?
So the United States is the first. I don't remember which European countries come next, but it's mostly European countries. So, but I don't remember which. I can send you. I don't want to say.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Right. Okay. In general, you see this war as having had presented amazing challenges, but it's demonstrated the resilience of the Israeli people and the Israeli economy. Um, what kind of message would you like to share with U.S. businesses and investors about the resilience of the Israeli people and the future growth potential of investments in Israel?
So I think in Israel we look at every challenge as an opportunity. That's part of our nature. And if you take a look at the last couple of even decades in Israel, every challenge we came out stronger. Every challenge. If it's COVID, we're one of the countries that came out with the highest. We had 15% growth after COVID. 15 in the 2 years after COVID. Every war we had in the past, I'm talking about the last 20, 30 years, we came out with higher positive growth than we would have thought before the war. And I think that's what we're starting to see now. Of course, it's been harder than most wars have been on Israel. It costs more. It's multiple fronts, but it's a great opportunity. And I think we have shown that it's a great opportunity. And we have shown when you invest in Israel, you get results. And I think that's something that people maybe are not aware of completely, but I think that those that are aware of it are probably benefiting from it now. People that invested in stock markets in Israel a year ago, which everybody thought it was probably crazy, this Middle East country, multi-front war, are now seeing 50% yield. So if you believe in Israel, I think I'm not an investment advisor, but I think it shows that it's a good investment. But I also think that what this October 7th war has shown us, and I think we started with a moment of silence, as there is good and bad. And we know that we need to recognize that the bad is bad and the good is good. And I think our duty as part of the good guys, part of the good side of things, is to be strong together. So I think that connect that with the economic opportunities, and I think that really makes the difference. And I think that will show the world that the good will always defeat the bad. Not only in the battlefield, but also in the economic field. So I think that's my message.
That is a beautiful message. It's an uplifting message on a very sad day. And we've put into the chat how you could get onto the economic newsletter, which is very, very important for all of us to know. I'd like to thank you so much. And I just would like to say a word about Emet and a world where there's a lot of misinformation and inaccurate facts about Israel and the Middle East. Our members of Congress depend on Emet. We're on Capitol Hill almost every day, informing them with critical analyses and policy decisions regarding Israel and the Middle East. So please support us and please do your best to support the state of Israel. Thank you very, very much, Minister Hacker.
Thank you very much.